Hey YouTube. So I'm going to talk about seasonal affective disorder and a couple solutions I have for it that are really, 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 really freaking effective. So this is probably an ideal day to talk about seasonal affective disorder, as this is a typical Utah winter here. Normally I would be doing very poorly. I would have unstable mood, low productivity, low energy, no sex drive, nothing. And I came across an article that got me real interested in building my own seasonal affective disorder light, and it put me on this crazy ass research train. So I'm going to try to summarize this as quick as possible because this video could be like an hour long if I just told you everything. But let's talk about seasonal affective disorder and metabolic bone disease. So metabolic bone disease is widely acknowledged as an issue in reptiles such as these bearded dragons you see here. These creatures have some of the highest requirements for UV rays of all creatures, that and African turtles. And in this product that's designed to address that, this is sort of maybe aimed at turtles. Let me get some good light here. Okay. The UVB wavelengths help prevent or reverse metabolic bone disease in captive reptiles, which is a deficiency of vitamin D. UVA is part of the rainbow of colors that reptiles can see. UVA helps increase activity levels, appetite, and reproductive behaviors. Without UVA, they're colorblind. So, this is one of the highest quality products on the market for reptiles, for anyone keeping reptiles. And this company does a lot of testing and scientific research on it. In fact, they invented the whole idea of a special light for your reptiles, so people could not really keep reptiles without this. They even publish charts, and they sell meters to make sure that your lizard or whatnot is in the right range. These are very high quality devices here, and this is their most powerful product, and I am going to show you that later. But in human beings, we see a lot of interesting things. In the, where is it? In the 1930s, the American government recommended that people suntan their babies. This was the thinking of the day. And I'll just read this to you. The sun that tans the child's skin helps him grow normally. It gives his body the power to use food as to help build straight bones, strong muscles, and well-formed teeth. A child needs the sun most when he is growing fastest, in babyhood and early childhood. He also needs the so-called bottled sunshine, cod liver oil. If the baby does not get enough sun and cod liver oil, he may develop rickets. That is, his bones will not develop normally, his muscles will be flabby, and his skin will be pale. He may also be slow in teething and learning to walk. If the sun's rays are to help the baby grow properly and to prevent rickets, they must fall directly on the skin and tan it. The rays that tan the skin and prevent rickets, the ultraviolet rays, do not pass through clothing nor through ordinary windows glass. Every mother who wishes her baby to have robust health should give him regular sun baths from early infancy until he is old enough to play in the sun himself. So, they're very pro on sunlight exposure, right? This is more along the lines of modern thinking. Protect yourself. Use sunscreen. You don't want to get any UVA or UVB on yourself. The most common cause of skin cancer is the sun. No matter your skin tone, you can get cancer. You will die. Use a layered approach. Essentially get the least amount of sun that you can possibly get. How can I protect my children from the sun? There's no you should get sun in this site. There isn't any pro-sun. This is all anti-sun, isn't it? Too much sun hurts. Well, that's quite interesting, right? That they sort of flipped their position. This is what African children living under white people's advice look like. Look at how their bones are all twisted up. They have not fully formed their bones. They say, even in this research article, calcium deficiency rickets. Well, why is calcium deficient? It's because vitamin D is what is responsible for shuttling calcium around the body. We kind of need that. And in bearded dragons, which are the most sunlight requiring creatures of them all, they just completely fall apart without the sun. And so with me being a person of half Hispanic and half white descent, I am a little bit like these African children, except my bones are generally straight. Well, actually, I do have tibial torsion, which I've talked about in other videos, and my hips are twisted. So I do have a bit of this rickets from lack of sun, living in a white man's land. And so it's important that you get enough sun, even if you're a white, and probably not think along the lines of the current CDC. Now I have some products here, which I had bought. Well, actually, I bought this one, the Circadian Optics unit, hoping to help with my seasonal affective disorder, and it did maybe 5-10% of the job under full exposure all day long. And I would call this a marginally effective product. Now here's the kicker. I didn't understand this when I bought it. But guess what? UV free. Yep. Free of unwanted UV rays, which are exactly what we need off the sun in order to produce vitamin D. So what is the point of this product? What is the point? You may as well buy a $12 hardware store light. Same thing with the Verilux. This is one of the more expensive units on the market. This uses a compact fluorescent instead. Let's look at their website. But without the UV rays. Why would you not want UV rays from a light? Again, you could have spent $12 instead of $100. This is my lady's unit, and she also has seasonal affective disorder, and she says this does not work on her. I find that these mostly belong in the garbage. I'm going to show you some interesting shit that I came up on. I was reading this article about a guy building a sunlight simulator, and he had talked about what normal lights are like. So this is the sun. And in fact, there's probably more of this activity in the UVA, UVB, UVC range. But this graph maybe has picked up, some cloudy day or whatever. These are high-end compact fluorescents. Now just look at how poor and uneven this lighting distribution is, and we have no UVA really here to speak of. This is what most people have in their homes. These are some very high-end LEDs, very expensive. Again, the light output is just weird. Almost no UVA or UVB. It's been filtered out. We don't want harmful UV rays to produce vitamin D and nourish our bodies. Now this is a ceramic metal halide light. This is what you would use to shoot something that looks like it's shot in daylight in the middle of a dark warehouse in Hollywood. And we have some pretty decent distribution of UVA and UVB here. This one is not oriented towards that, so it has less than a ceramic metal halide light would have. This is an old school incandescent bulb. You will notice there is some UVA output. This is what people use for hundreds of years. And of course it's got its orange yellowish tinge because of this weird light output. But I would bet that when we switched over to this bullshit, people started suffering of seasonal affective disorder a lot more. That's just my guess. I don't see how this could be useful in any way. It's very weird light. So he had taken the ceramic metal halide bulb and built himself a cute little enclosure. And in his article, he says that you should use more than 150 watts of power. So I went to go and build a 300 watt unit. And I noticed the thing was severely overpowered. I went out and bought Power Sun light from ZoomEd, which is the highest quality creator of these products. And it was too much. It was simply too much. It was unbearable. I had a reversal of my seasonal affective disorder and an instant change in my mood, but I started sweating within 3 minutes. So I went down. I stepped down to a smaller 100-watt bulb. That was too much. That was way too much. And then I switched to a compact fluorescent, as seen here. And this is still too much for constant use. And over here we have one of these high-end Crees for $12. That's nothing. From the hardware store in this enclosure. And it is meant to provide the rest of the spectrum while this provides the UVA and UVB. And I would say this is a nice light to sort of sip on for about 4 to 6 hours. But you'll see effects within 15 minutes. And I'll just fire it up for you real quick and show you what this $100 light fixture is like. Operated at about 2 feet away from you, you should be getting plenty of UVB. I have pretty light skin, so if you're an African or some other shade of brown, Indian, whatever, you might want this a little bit closer, but this will be just the ticket for a dark-skinned person. Now, if I were to modify this light, what I would do is use the shorter version of the compact fluorescent and a smaller full-spectrum light, and I would put it in that little gap right where my monitor is, and that would be my all-day sipping light. I was very impressed with the results of this light, but I decided that since my lady lizard, since she has just as bad of seasonal affective disorder as I am, but she does not have 12 hours to sit in front of a light every day. She has 5 minutes before she goes to work, and then she's in a dark office building. I decided I'm going to get a light cannon. And this thing, holy fucking shit. This thing is ridiculous. I'm going to turn it on for you real quick and let you listen to it. This is a serious ceramic metal halide light. Oh yeah. You can hear that. You can hear that transformer, huh? This ain't no joke. This product ain't no joke. Now, we're not going to be getting any UV out of it for a while because it's got a warm-up period. So I'm gonna show you some other things in the meantime, and then we'll get back to that. So this thing will do its job of relieving you of seasonal affective disorder in just a couple minutes, and probably those couple minutes are just the time to turn it on and for it to start creating UV output. Now you see the light is a little funny right now. The light ends up evening out over time, and I'm not getting any UV. I can put my hand right up to it and not feel burned. But let's just give that a couple minutes. I'm going to tell you about a very interesting product that has not been released from ZoomEd. The Reptisun UVB LED. The unicorn is real. So, UVB and UVC and UVA LEDs have been extremely expensive for a very long period of time, to the point where you'll find them in no commercial product whatsoever. This is probably going to end up costing hundreds of dollars, I'll be honest. But look at the compact form factor compared to this thing. This thing is a seasonal affective disorder light in disguise. And in fact, they even show you the visible output wavelengths. And we've got some lumpy output here because we're using UVB lights and we're using UVA, and then we've got a weird full spectrum LED. But we're getting pretty much a pretty good rendition of the sun from this LED unit, which could be portable and use very little power, versus something like what I have, which is the ceramic. Well, I have this one is a metal halide, not a ceramic metal halide, so it is not as good as this, but it's very close. And in fact, I grilled the R&D guy over at ZoomEd, and he sent me this spectral distribution graph, and this is actually quite good. Other than the characteristic spikes we have here, that is the same as a very expensive ceramic metal halide. we have a really nice distribution of light. And we've got UVA and UVB. And this is the, I guess this would be the UVA, and that would be the UVB. This is more UVB than it is UVA. Whereas with this Reptisun, it's the other way around. So in theory, if you wanted this ultimate seasonal affective disorder light, you would take this UVA light and swap out this resistor for one of a little bit higher value, and you would get a bit less of this spike. Now, sun tanning lights, actually, they have the UVA jacked way up. Like it's a ratio of like 20 to 1, versus this is like a 4 to 1 ratio of UV. And actually the reason why sunlight beds give people cancer is because the UVA is so intense that you can get a tan in 15 minutes. It's basically cooking your meat on the highest power setting possible and charring the shit out of it. You do not want an inordinate amount of UVA. You want what you ideally want is you want the sun. This is what will give you the happiness. So, well, this thing should be fired up now. So I'll give you an idea of how far I can feel the heat from, because I don't have a $300 meter just yet. So right here, I can feel a slight tingle. So this would probably be the distance I would like to operate this at. Right here, I am most certainly feeling some heat here. And right around here, this is verging on too much. I would start sweating. And this, I don't want to do that very long. So there's a specific distance, sort of like they mentioned on the product box, that there's a certain distance that you want to operate at this at for optimum performance and safety. And this is simply way too close. You want to be probably about 2 to 3 feet. Now, if you're an African person, like maybe you want to be a little closer. Maybe you need significantly more UV light. But this thing, let me tell you, I am beyond impressed with this light. I went from gloomy to bouncing off the freaking walls in a period of 2 minutes the first time I turned it on. And it was actually quite weird that to be going out in town and interacting with people who were suffering of seasonal affective disorder, whereas I felt like I was I just got back from sipping margaritas on the Mexico beach. Like I was really happy and energetic compared to most people, and everyone else just kind of blah. I was too much to handle. So it can really put you out of sync with the world around you to have cured your seasonal affective disorder, because I do believe that even white people do suffer of it, but Hispanic and African American people are going to suffer of it the most, and they need something like this the most. I had read that UVA and UVB can suppress melatonin production, and I always had a problem with sleeping enough. When I was younger, I would struggle to fall asleep, and I would lose hours off the night part of the day. And then when I entered my 30s, for some reason, it went the other way around, where I go to sleep fairly easily, but I don't stay asleep for very long, and I usually get anywhere from 7 to 5 hours of sleep a night, and it really does impact my life to be just, subchronically deprived of sleep all the time. I've been using this for a total of 3 days to bask on, and I've experimented with this for 2 days. And the basking light, if I shut it off at about 7 or 8 and go to bed at 11, I seem to fall asleep really, really fast and stay asleep much better. The first night I used this, the first day I used this, I went to sleep very quick. It's like an hour before bed, my energy levels just went from sparkling, amazing off the scale to nothing. And the second my head hit the pillow, I was out. And I slept for 7 hours, and I was like, there is something to this. The next day I used it, I had an even more intense drop off about an hour and a half before bed. And the second I hit the pillow, I was out. And in fact, I was at my lady's house, and she has these cats that like to flip out in the morning. And I slept through that. I got exact 8 hours of sleep, and I woke up feeling like kind of refreshed. And I was like, there is something to this. So I think that light therapy could potentially help you with your sleep. I know that during the summer months, I have a really hard time sleeping because of all the sunlight that I'm getting, and I get very little sleep, and sometimes my sleep schedule can continue to advance into it being inverted, and then I have to go and invert my sleep schedule by staying up later, and then to get back on the 9 to 5. And then in the winter, I have issues with my energy levels all day long, and then I have issues sleeping. So it's just the worst of all worlds. And given that this is one of the most intense winter days we've had this year, having an adequate amount of sleep last night was amazing. And I had brought this over to my lady's house and tested it out on her, because she, again, is half Hispanic, half white, and she has seasonal affective disorder pretty bad. Well, again, she started to perk up after just a couple minutes, and that's roughly a couple minutes is the amount of time that it takes for this to warm up and start producing useful UV to the point where you could feel it. And even the cats came in, and they were like, "What's this?" And then they were just kind of hanging around, and they're usually sort of like lethargic in the morning, and they started getting frisky, and I was like, I feel like I'm onto something here. So, yeah, I'm gonna kill myself with harmful UV rays and get skin cancer, but you know what? I feel great. Now, I think that if you were to run this thing on a timer, or, well, more so the basking light, a less powerful one on a timer, you could probably achieve some circadian control quite well. I don't know how long you need to run it, at what times of the day. I'm still experimenting with that, but this is a very interesting lead, because we actually do have lots of bone health issues and hormonal issues and whatnot in this country. In fact, something like 75% of Americans are vitamin D deficient, and that's critical to your immune system. So why would you not want to have adequate vitamin D levels for $100 to protect yourself against a thing like the coronavirus or the influenza or whatever? This could boost your natural immune system significantly. And in fact, in Canada, they have a regulatory framework for sun lamps. And these sun lamps actually are designed to produce UVA and UVB. And they acknowledge that this is a real problem and to be treated medically. So they have devices, unlike these pieces of shit here, that actually work. Now, they cost hundreds of dollars. The most expensive one I've seen is $1,000, and it's designed almost like a sunlight, like a sun tanning lamp. It's designed around that idea, and it's very broad spectrum and will light up an entire room, but you don't need that. You just need a little bit of UV rays on your skin, and you'll be fine. So the solution to this problem is not elusive. It's just that whenever you go looking around on information on the internet, you're going to come across lots of conflicting information and very little acknowledgement of the issue in human beings. Now, when you start getting into animal science, if you were to browse ZoomEd's website or Exoterra or any of those more higher-end manufacturers of products, you would see lots of very objective information about the needs of lizards. It's just, for whatever reason, we aren't objective about the needs of human beings. So it's quite disappointing. I went on a real rampage, and all the information I found that turned out to be accurate and useful was based on animals. Even so, some of these organizations have actually spoofed Google. Now I'm going to look up that sunlight for babies on Google. Okay, what do we see? Don't ever do it. No sun. Oh, doesn't have the ability to metabolize and excrete chemicals in sunscreens. Lightweight sun. Lightweight sun protective clothing. Never expose your children. Right? And so Sunlight for Babies should bring up the 1933 article that I showed you. But guess what? It's nowhere to be found. And it's getting harder and harder to find this article. Here, let's go. Another page. Nope. That's literally the title of the article. And you should, and see, now you get into Vitamin D Wiki. You're on page 3. That's when you find this information, which would be very useful. And in fact, even includes recommendations on how much vitamin D you should get to prevent various diseases. Dollars per year. $3 per year. So that's sort of an example of what you're going to find on the internet when you look for human-specific data. This is many pages deep and far away. And you could find, from this Vitamin D Wiki, you could probably find lots of research, but when you look in Google, suddenly it's no longer there. How bizarre, right? I really wonder if this is, I hate to say it, but is it a conspiracy? Do they not want people to be healthy? I don't know. Now, UV can kill you. You can get melanoma. Melanoma is horrifying. But the dose makes the poison as far as sunlight goes. If you're of Irish descent or something like that, a ginger, you probably shouldn't go out in the sun for 4 hours. That's very likely to expose you to a risk for cancer, but you'd also be completely burned. You'd probably burn after about an hour or 2 hours here in this intense desert sun, which we do not currently have, but since we're at 4,500 feet altitude, it's pretty intense. But if you're a black person and you follow the same advice, or you're mixed like me, it could be a real danger to your health to not be getting sun. So, I don't know. I'll let you come to your own conclusion on that. If you're suffering of seasonal affective disorder, I would strongly recommend probably avoiding this unless you only have 5 minutes in the morning. If you need to bask because you're working at home, like most people are, you want to build something like this but less powerful. This is the UVB 10. Maybe get the 5, or get the short version of the 10 and put a 75 or 50 watt light by Cree or any other manufacturer that advertises a high CRI value. This is 90 plus. So this is pretty good. We'd really like 100, but we're not going to get it at the hardware store. Put together yourself a nice little seasonal affective disorder light and bask in that thing. You'll love it. But so far, I'm feeling really good. I feel like I have stepped off a plane from Hawaii, and I'm enjoying it very much. And I would say that I have a mild case of dyslexia and a little bit of ADHD as well. I feel like those aspects of my mental difficulty are under better control when I get adequate sunlight. So I don't really know about that. I've never heard of any sort of research on sunlight and ADHD and other various mental quirks, but I have actually been a lot more productive, a lot more focused, and it just feels like I'm running on all cylinders. So for me and my lady and her cats, we all agree that that UVB is not harmful, and it's actually quite good, especially on a day like this. Hopefully I've helped you, and if you play around with this, please let me know what your results were like. I really want to hear your opinions, negative, positive, whatever. Go find a reptile store near you and get one of these CFLs. At the very least, you may not even need that light. You may just need the UVB UVA. And get back to me and let me know how it goes. All right, peace.